Hello. Today we will be discussing Cenotaph. More specifically though, a specific chapter of Cenotaph. I'll be focusing on Dauntless's Interlude because I absolutely love this chapter. As much as Cenotaph itself is really good, this chapter of Dauntless is really what I base my idea of Dauntless on. Considering, he doesn't actually have much of a presence in canon. This is, I think, the best portrayal of him that I know of. Also, sorry for lower quality stuff. I am currently out of town for the next few months. And yeah, let's hope that I can keep it up. Notes always has a very clear voice. They are very good at expressing what they want to say, and they have a really good way of writing characters in different ways, and I like that. And it shows through in Dauntless. I can tell, especially, I'll go into a bit of the phrasing a little bit, especially some of the small things that I find on the better details that I love about it. But it also has great description, great phrasing, and it's really nice because it uses exposition to actually further Dauntless's characters, and I'll go into that as well. It's not really even exposition, really. They're using information that we know in order to elaborate on Dauntless's character by presenting it in a way that is Dauntless. I like the ending to the chapter, it's nice and self-contained. This chapter does chronicle the rise of Dauntless, the gradual improvement through daily effort and expenditure of Dauntless, from being the weakest person on record to someone who could potentially split the gods someday. But I'd like to go through a few points of phrasing. Like, there's some very nice word choices, and I really like the opening sentence. Roger wondered sometimes why it had been him. And then it's completely slice of life. Looking up at the ceiling of his bedroom, forearm thrown across his face, feeling the gentle rocking motion of the Protectorate's floating base in the bay, and failing utterly at getting in an afternoon nap before an evening patrol. Well, the doubts rose up as they had so many times before. I love that. I love the way Notes describes things. This is one of the words I mean. It's not that it's purple prose. It's just so descriptive. You can imagine that scene, and you can empathize. And I love that about it. Also, he'd been muddling through college, 3 years and 5 majors into it. I like that way of describing the time. I don't know, I just love that stuff. What I meant when I said clear voice and other things is there's this really small detail where Dauntless, half of what Dauntless says is very chance-based. It's very unsure of itself. And there's really, the way he describes himself is also quite humbling. Not really, but it's quite nice. He was mediocre. There were those stronger, smarter, more determined, some who were all of the above. Even he respected them to the best, but yada yada yada. But he wasn't anything more than second rate. And this is what I like. It's just the use of the medium. Public relations, he was ... okay at. Goes on to explain why, but it was better. And then he talks about comparative advantage, which I personally find it hilarious because it's a really specific term, but okay. He wasn't better at it, just least bad. And that is such an incredible way of describing being halfway decent with something that I've never heard someone use before. Honest to God, I've never heard someone describe something as least bad. It explains more in detail about why Dauntless is comfortable being less powerful, mainly due to the stress pressure put on it, and just the fact that he is so accepting of potential mediocrity, and that's just contrasted with the power and potential magnificence of Dauntless and the power set to the point where I love the guy, I love the power, I love everything about the character, but without this chapter and the way that Notes described Dauntless, I would not have actually given it a second thought. Because that power would be pretty powerful if you given time. I didn't see the person behind it, and I thank Notes for that. That aside, I like some of this. It's like, especially the phrase, but it wasn't nothing. Being the guy that people felt comfortable talking with, laughing with, crying with. The fact that he describes as it wasn't nothing. It's not even the normal kind of how is it not bad? It's not even that. It's just the phrasing is so unsure of itself. It's so modest and humble that I love it, and it's done in such clear ways that I don't really hear much that I love it. But yeah, yeah. What I was saying before about the very uncertainty is carried through later in the chapter. It's like because in 5 years, 10 years, maybe he could make a difference. Maybe he could hurt an end bringer, and that's I love that. It's just the uncertainty. It just fits this chapter and his character so well. And then it describes a shift, and just like that, he wasn't seen as mediocre anymore. It goes into detailed description of all the armor and equipment, but past this point, there's no more uncertainty. There's not much. There's not much maybe. It's he always had the same answer. People thought he was being humble. Uh, there's no more self-doubt past this point in the chapter. But it switches because now he has to deal with the pressure. Dauntless has to deal with the pressure of being superpowered. It had been comfortable being the friendly one, the approachable one, the one people liked. Being the guy people hoped would save the world was fucking terrifying. And it's just this pressure because even though he doesn't talk like he's mediocre anymore, he doesn't say all this stuff, it still goes through certain parts of it. Like, Roger knew there were people harder, stronger, more determined than he, but no one else could use it. They tested it. He insisted, and that's pretty important because it's not even just they think he's good, but he wants others because he feels it's not his right. He doesn't feel like he's worthy of the weapon. And actually, there's a bit of a reference. And like some parody of the story of the sword in the stone, they'd come to see if the arc lads would live in their hands. Nothing. And he knew it wouldn't work, he just wanted to try it because he was terrified of the pressure. And then there's just talk about how it's all power, not skill. Dauntless worries about that. And it talks about the burden, the burden of stress that he feels like one day he'll get there and be that strong. And I feel like it's a nice also counterpart to the fact that it is his power doing it, and it is that the burden grows strong with every imbuing. They start listing big threats that get stronger. And then they describe characters and entities that we know already. This is exposition, but it's pointless because we all know these characters. We know of Crawler, we know of Glacier Green. If we are reading fan fiction, we know the original contents here. And so it's here, and I like it because it serves a really nice purpose. It's not too overdone, but it gives you a sense of the world through his eyes by looking at the threats. And you see that Dauntless is a person that sees the world is with people who are better than him. He sees people that are bigger than him, who are stronger than him, who are smarter than him. And he does his best. And he is the best example of imposter syndrome I have ever seen. Now, if you don't know quickly, imposter syndrome is where you feel like you are a fraud and that everyone else around you is better than you. So, for example, you're a musician. I'm not a musician. I asked around on a guitar. Sure, I released a few songs, but it's not like I'm actually doing anything good. I'm not a dancer. I just can mess around. Sure, I did a choreo or two, but I'm not that good. It's just the sense that even though most people would describe you as something, you feel like you are a fake and a phony that isn't as good as everyone around you. And you're terrified and stressed out because one day someone might say, hey, you're not as good as we thought you were. And yeah. But that's another issue. I just feel like Dauntless is such an interesting person, and this is a really nice way to describe him. And at this point, you start feeling the helplessness come off him. The defeats didn't bear thinking of. The world was slowly dying beneath that irresistible pressure. And there's just this entire feeling that he is losing control of the situation. The form of the chapter, starts with him describing how he started as a hero, describe the uncertainty, the peak of that, goes through his infinite potential, then talks about the others that are better than him, the stronger. Then it starts going downhill, and this is where it starts feeling powerless, because he starts referring to other heroes that are stronger, and he refers to threats that he cannot fight, even though one day he might, and that is an incredible pressure. And then it feels like the world is out of his hands, that everything's changing, and then in the chapter, the corridor tilts. Just as he's feeling powerless, just as he's feeling the world is completely out of his control, everything changes, literally. Lo and behold, Leviathan. And then at the end, we return to the roots a little bit. We see once again what kind of person Roger is. Roger flushed as everyone turned to look at him, not, stare them back, not just embarrassed and feeling awkward. It's very humanizing. Why did it have to be him? Very humanizing. But then in the end, it's the kind of character Dauntless is. It's the kind of hero you want because, what's that phrase? Bravery is not a lack of fear. Bravery is defiance of fear. It's going ahead even though shit's going tits up and you know it very, very well. And the final bit of it, move out with that, move out. Maybe today was the last day that question would haunt him, one way or the other. Dauntless hefted his spear and followed his team through the shattered window and onto the beach. It's a slice of life chapter. It is very, very anticlimactic. There's nothing to it, but it works as a self-contained study of character, and I love it. And yeah, and so that's the chapter. Apologies if it's not as technical as some people might have hoped. Apologies if it was too technical. I don't know how you'd feel about it, but personally, I just liked the chapter. I wanted to talk about it, and it was easier than trying to cram all of Cenotaph into a single video. So yeah, see you guys next week.